Law enforcement and government agencies struggle with parking citations, often because no one will pay them. Boots or other devices are costly, and they invite confrontation when implied and later removed by enforcing employees. With Tire Tag, you can avoid many hurdles and ultimately promote public safety and revenue collection. To learn more, visit tiretag.com. Have you heard of Able? Able is built by AI engineers in San Francisco, and it takes body cam footage and turns it into police reports, using both visual data and transcripts to gather a full picture of the events. If your agency is still writing reports, then it's time to upgrade and liberate 1/3 of patrol time for more important things, like actual policing. Go to ablepolice.com, that's ABEL police.com to learn more. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric. Today I'm joined by Chris Zamora and Tami Sharp with Law Enforcement Coaching. Chris, Tami, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to get to know you both better, to learn about, and I'm excited to continue working in alignment with law enforcement coaching. We're talking about law enforcement and first responder culture. We're talking about the toxic negativity, this pervasive kind of cloud that we are in, we're continually in. But then the real talk of like, what do we need to do? Like, let's shake ourselves as a culture and snap out of it and put some real action behind it.
Absolutely. This is the shakeup. Like what we were kind of talking about before is that what we have seen, because we work with departments across the country, we work with wellness professionals, and one of our mottos is there is no competition in the wellness space. There's more than enough pain to go around. So if you are somebody that is in the wellness space, you're trying to help, and you have integrity, we support the mission and we talk to people all the time. And one of the biggest pain points I think that we're all seeing, peer support, wellness conferences, is the people that are interested in wellness are the ones that show up. But the ones that really actually need it and would benefit won't even open their ears a little bit. And so these conversations, these collaborative efforts coming together and just getting louder, I think, the audience, you need to listen. Self-care is not selfish. It's not taboo. And the stigma, that's an excuse. That's an old dying model about suck it up, buttercup. That's not effective. It's not sustainable. So hi, welcome. I'm Tami. I can go on tangents all day long.
I love it. No, I do the same. A few things come to mind. I love how we just jumped into it, but truly, it is not a competition. We just need more. And this reminds me of a conversation I had with prior multiple appearance guest and who I would call a friend, Mark Bouchard, who wrote "Setting My Sights on Stigma." He's north of the border, like the Canadian border. Like all of our issues, our concerns. You were talking with a cop you're working with over, across the pond, as they say, right? The UK. But just to talk about the climate there and how it is, if anything, maybe even more challenging and daunting right now than the US, which is hard for Americans to recognize and maybe conceptualize right now. But all to say, we just need more, because I might have a tone on things and a spin on things. Chris and Tami might have a spin on things, Mark as well. But my true belief in this nature of, I guess, positivity and abundance is that we're going to hit the right people in the way that they're ready to receive it, right? And then for listeners, like a certain episode, right, you might feel it's really going to hit your squad member that you've been kind of hesitant to share some of these conversations with prior. And so, no, I'm all for it. I truly do believe in that.
When it comes to wellness, there's such a stigma behind it. I'm a 23-year veteran retired police officer from Arizona, and throughout my career, wellness was something you really didn't talk about. And I think because we made up a story that if you talk about wellness or you have some issues regarding wellness, that's considered weakness, right? Because we are the police, people call us when they have problems. We solve problems. We're not supposed to have problems. And in law enforcement, what do we do to increase our likelihood of surviving a lethal force encounter? Well, we train, right? We train, we qualify, we do day quals, we do night quals. We get rifle certified. We go through defensive tactics, right? This increases our chances of surviving an encounter if we get into one. But we don't really associate wellness with officer safety. If you're not right in the head because you're going through a divorce, or you're going through a separation, or you're going through depression and anxiety, are you going to be 100% on shift when you're at work? Right? That's the importance of having wellness in the forefront, because if you want to increase your officer safety, you got to be good. You got to be good up in your head, and up in our head. Well, that's the danger zone, right? This is where we create these stories, and we can suffer. We can suffer in silence for years because we're afraid to talk about it. And imagine that. Imagine if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, you're going through a divorce, and now you're patrolling, and now you're dealing with some gangbangers on the street. Now you're responding to a robbery in progress, right? You want to be clear-minded when you're dealing with that stuff. So wellness for me is at the forefront for any first responder.
And you hit on a few things I want to circle back to. One is the notion of officer safety, right? It is paramount. We learn in the culture like your number one job is to go home at the end of the day. And while we can all agree upon that, what that means, oftentimes we get so tunnel vision on that, right? That's tactics, that's wearing your vest and wearing your seatbelt. These things that should be second nature, and sadly they're still not, right? So if we're even talking about the brass tacks of when you should draw your weapon rather than complacently like walking around a building that's been broken into, like are you holstered outside of what you typically train, because you're like, the guy's gone, it's been like 8 hours. Well, do you actually know, right? And so we can recognize that complacency that seeps in, traffic stops, what have you. We see these things from the day we start training. However, like, what is officer safety? Like, to go home and to be serviceable and to be well, right? And so too often we still have the stigmas that we talk about, right, that you both mentioned, but also this like lack of awareness that wellness is operational ability. It is like functionality, and right, like we want to be functional for ourselves, for our team. Like if I'm going to be a reliable back, it's not just having bullets in my magazine. It's like being aware, being alert, being in tune, being physically able, but then being mentally resilient, right? Mentally durable, emotionally stable. Like all these things ensure that we all do our job well for the public, and also we like stay out of trouble. We don't mouth off, and we don't like have a blip where we violate someone's rights, or we get charged, or we get all these things. Like these are very real stressors that we have to deal with. Like we need to be absolutely optimized. And like what is at the base of that? Well, it's literally how are we taking care of ourselves? I appreciate that.
Yeah. So imagine this. So, well, real quick. So going back. So my dad was old school. He was an outpost deputy sheriff in Washington. For those that are just getting to know me, I'm from Washington originally, even though we're in Arizona now. But he was an outpost deputy that was responsible for a 72-mile radius up North Cascade Highway. And it was just him and one state trooper as his closest backup, who lived 14 miles away. And then their closest backup was 32 miles down the road. And then their closest backup was another 20 miles. So they really were it was on 24/7. They didn't get a day off. We had a sheriff sign in our front yard, so people knew where to find us at all hours of the day and night.
Oh my gosh.
And this was before cell phones and internet. So we also had the landline phone. I always tell people, like, I learned to run radar when I was 4, but I also learned to do dispatch as soon as I was allowed to talk on the phone, because we had calls coming straight to the house. So back then, you didn't talk about it. One, where we were, there wasn't anybody to talk to. So I grew up listening to all of the stories all the time, because I would go sit at the table with all of the local cops, and that's how they processed their stuff. But even then, they were at least talking about it with people that understood. Now, with social media and with larger departments that aren't necessarily a close-knit community, or if you're a sheriff's office and everybody's got their own take-home cars, like, you're not talking to people. Like, you might do your briefing before you go out, but what I think should shift, this is just my opinion, and it probably won't, but if a department implemented it, it would help. Do a shift debrief. And I know that's easier said than done, because some people get called out and you can't have everybody there. Mm-hmm. Even if you did a weekly debrief after that, you get everybody in and be like, hey guys, how was your week? Kind of slow? Oh, you had a bad call? Get them talking about it. Everybody's just kind of going home, isolating, not really sharing, and then doom scrolling. Everybody, there's very few. And the funny thing is, if somebody's not on their phone and doom scrolling, we as a society is like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you on social media? That's weird. So the majority of people are zoning out, playing video games and all of that, but they're not talking. They're not even talking amongst their peers. And the suicide rate we know is off the charts. What's frustrating, besides the suicide rate, which is unacceptable, divorce is just more culturally acceptable than it is to say, I'm seeing a therapist, I'm working with a coach. We need to flip that.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you're
stark.
right with the suicide rate. We're almost 3 times higher likelihood of committing suicide than getting killed in the line of duty. And you got to ask yourself, now, why is that? Well, if you look at the way officers are trained, we're trained in tactics, right? We go and we qualify, we do skill building, we do combat shoots, we do all this DT. And I think the number of, and that allows for that number of getting killed in the line of duty, it lessens it. Now, one officer being killed is way too many, right? But why aren't we 3 times, higher likelihood of getting killed in the line of duty versus committing suicide? Because it's training. We're very heavily based on tactical training, as we should be. And then what training are we lacking? We're lacking how to process trauma. We're lacking on how to talk and how to communicate. And I think that is why we have that almost 3 times higher likelihood of a suicide rate, because we're lacking in that area. Now, I'm not saying reduce tactical training. No, we got to keep it. But we also have to up that training for resiliency, for how to be able to communicate and talk. And it's okay to go talk to a mental health professional. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's no stigma behind it. Again, it's officer safety. By clearing your mind, you're allowing yourself to be that operational readiness. I'm ready to hit the streets and to go do my job, right? And to protect members of the public. I hope officers start to look at mental health, wellness, and talking to somebody in that sense. It's good for your officer safety.
Yeah. Yeah. You just said something that I think is a really powerful recognition, right? Just being able to clear your mind allows you to focus on things that you need to focus on. And when you're at work, you need to focus on threats. You need to focus on all the checklists, either literal or mental, to make a successful investigation so it actually goes somewhere. So there is some accountability. So there is some safety for the victim, and on and on. Like, we got to run our lap despite what happens after. But there's also this, like, comparing, that mental clutter and what we do with it. It's almost like if you saw your buddy like carrying like 8 things, maybe they're carrying like a shield and a ram and their notebook, and then their gun belt's kind of slung over their shoulder because they just got done, and they're trying to move all this stuff, and you're like, hey, I got this wagon, like, you want to throw in the wagon? They're like, no, I got it all. You're like, okay, like, I can help you carry some of it, like I could grab the shield because your hands are full and your stuff's shoved in your armpits. And they're like, no, I got it. Like, is that brave? Is that courageous? Or is that actually ignorant? Is that actually egotistical? Is it actually kind of selfish because you're not letting your buddy help you out? And I think maybe that's a symbol to roll with, right? Because that buddy is literally like a peer support, but also that buddy could be a symbol for meditation. It could be a symbol for talking to a clinician. It could be a symbol for doing a yoga practice, right? Start of the day. And I know y'all are into that. So, and on and on. We have all these resources, and it's cool because it's cool. It's not cool if people are like, yeah, I get it. I hear the resources. It's not for me. It's like, well, what is for you? Like, let's find something that is. Let's try them. How do you actually know unless you actually give a concerted effort, maybe a couple times, until you recognize the power of some of these things?
I think you just made a really interesting point that I hadn't really thought about. So that carrying all that stuff. So I had my own experience with that when I had my daughter, because I was a full-on completely single mom. I had no help. And so I had to do everything. It was survival, and you just do what you got to do. So like, I lived up a flight of stairs. I had emergency C-section. So my core was shot. I have a newborn baby. And I live up a flight of stairs, a long drive. So for me, like, I had great arm muscles at the time because I had the baby carrier, I got the diaper bag, I got everything. And plus I have a baby. So I have one shot to get from the apartment to the car. I can't forget anything because I'm not going to leave my baby. So I was so used to literally carrying all of that stuff myself and just doing what I needed to do to get it done. And I went to a friend's house for dinner one night. And I'm out in the driveway getting all my stuff out of the car, getting the baby out. And her husband came out. And when I turned around, he had everything. Like, I had nothing. I had no baby. I had no bag. He had everything. And he was already heading into the house. And I sat there, I froze because I did not know what to do. I was like, what do you mean? I don't have to carry what? And then I was
Mm,
like, that's what it's like to have a partner and a parent. Well, that's amazing. But it's that moment where officers that are carrying all of that stuff, it's survival and it's autopilot and they're doing what they need to do just to make it through the day. And it's awkward to let somebody else to carry it, but I gotta say from firsthand experience, and then when Chris and I got together, and I do have a partner in all things in business and parenting, even we just took a road trip, and I drive because I get car sick, and I drove all
mm,
the way, drove 8.5 hours, which should have been a 6 hour drive, and then on the way back, the
yeah.
last leg of it, I'm like, dude, I'm done. And it was so nice to be able to pass it off to somebody else and let myself breathe. So I think that's just a really interesting insight that if you are somebody that's carrying all of that, yes, it might be uncomfortable at first, but it's so nice when you do just let go.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It is the team aspect, and it's not a solo sport. And I think that's where I do suggest this ego notion, right? And I venture to guess that most people that listen to content like ours aren't egotistical. But what I mean is that we all have a degree of ego that's where our confidence comes from. That's where our doingness, our drive. But I'm speaking for myself first. But there's been times when I'm like, no, I got it, I got it, I got it. However, like I have so many people in my circles that are willing to help out, listen in, right? Support. I can sit on the bench for a moment, right? And I will help myself and everyone else better if I'm willing to do that, right? If I'm willing to surrender that ego, because we want to do more, we want to do it faster, we want to do it better, but it is not sustainable, right? Like you got to pause just as much as you hit play. So, yeah, Chris, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. And also, I do want to kind of get into like your guys' mission. Like, where would all of this come from?
Yeah, the ego gets in the way quite a bit. I mean, let's just be honest. And when you're dealing with law enforcement, we have self confidence. We have to have self confidence to do the things that we're responsible for, right? It's not everybody can be a cop. Not everybody can go out there and neutralize a very dangerous situation within seconds of arrival. So yeah, our ego does get in the way sometimes, and sometimes we got to put it in check, and we have to create that self-awareness. What is happening to me? What is happening to my thoughts? What's happening to my body? We will start to break down mentally, emotionally, we'll break down physically. We fall into this cycle of despair, if you will. And I lived it personally for several years. I was walking around. I was one of those types of people where it was my department, right? My department came first. My agency came first.
Mm,
My work came first. And throughout my career, that's how I operated, is work first, work first. And eventually it all caught up. And I couldn't process some of the trauma. I couldn't process life that was happening to me, because life happens to all of us. And twice in my career, I hit rock bottom where I almost resigned. And I figured if I just walk away, well, it's funny because I was on the homicide unit, and I was driving into work one morning, and I didn't realize I was under a tremendous amount of stress. I was always sweaty. If you remember back when you were a kid and those haunted houses that pop up on the corners during Halloween time, you
hmm
go in and you get scared, right? You're not going to get injured in there. You're not going to get killed, but that anticipation of that jump scare, that's how my
Yeah.
body was all the time. I was
Mm,
anticipating that jump scare. Imagine living like that every single day. I just didn't recognize it. And one morning I was driving into work. I was stopped at a red light, and there was a homeless guy sleeping on the corner. And I looked at him, and I envied that homeless guy. I said to myself, I want to be that guy right there. And why? Why do I want to be that homeless guy? Because he has no responsibilities. He doesn't have to be anywhere. He doesn't have to go testify in court, get beat down by a defense attorney. He doesn't have command on your ass, getting updates for these cases that you're working on, especially their high profile cases. He doesn't have people depending on him and all this responsibility. Now think about that. Think about the my mindset at that time. I want to be homeless. I want to live that life. And I think it was right around that time where I'm like thinking to myself, there's something wrong with me. Like that I want to be homeless. And I think if you ever have thoughts like that, start to question, why am I thinking this way? What is actually happening? Because I didn't know. I didn't recognize it. And I took about 3 months off of work, FM, and to try to figure out what was happening to me, because just these things were, I'd cry for no reason. I was having panic attacks. I was just dealing with anxiety. And of course, I don't want to tell anybody because I was ashamed of it. But that's basic human emotion. That is the result of bottling up all that stress for years and not doing anything about it, right? And so when I took that time off, I inadvertently, and I want your listeners to really be careful when you take time off. Because what I did was I inadvertently isolated myself from my peers, from my career at home. And at that time, I was going through a separation. So guess what? I surrounded myself with memories of my life where I was married, my kid, a room is empty, right? And every day I had to live like that. And I created this pattern of life that was just despair. And I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. So that is what caused me to really get into coaching, is figuring out how to get out of that dark place. Because yes, I could have stayed there. I could still be there today, but I'm not doing myself any good. And so I guess that's part of why myself and Tami, we created law enforcement coaching, because we created real world techniques that actually help you identify if you're in that dark place. And if you are in that dark place, do you want to stay there or do you want to get yourself out? If you want to get yourself out, we can give you some techniques to help you get yourself out. We'll give you some coaching techniques that'll help lessen the likelihood of you going into that dark place. But, we have to understand we can get ourselves out of there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing that personal story. And it really heightens like why we're here, where you came from, and that path you took to get here. There's a couple things I took note on, and it made me think of this common theme and something we need to recognize about it. And what I mean by that is we think about the mission, right? We come into this life, this career, this vocation, lifestyle of like service, and we are doing things for others, right? Like think about priorities of life. There's like the hostage or the victim up top, and then there's bystanders, and then there's us and the suspects down below, right? Because of the degree of choice and the degree of risk to them, right? So we understand by virtue of this job, we're going to go into things that are not so great because the reward is there, right? We're willing to undertake that risk. The mission is important. However, again, it's like there's the metaphor of like a car that's redlining, and you can't make it the mission all the time. When you're at work, sure, right? When you're at work, you got your cases, you got the calls stacking, you got your buddies, needing a back. Absolutely. However, it can't always be the mission. We can't like live for the mission. But even then, if we recognize like family and all these other aspects of our life, even to support those missions, both missions or all missions, right? Like we have to take care of our health. Another thing you said was crying for no reason, and that's a example that several people have shared when they're really like on the brink. It's either people that have shared their story about suicidality or the burnout, the real burnout. Like you're like, man, I don't know, I kind of want to be a homeless dude. I kind of envy that guy. I think it's really powerful. Truly believe like not to judge as much as we have our tendencies to judge ourselves, but to be curious, like, okay, why is that? And you've peeled that back for us. And then even track it back if we feel and we think these thoughts that are just, they seem nonsensical. Okay, like how did we get here? Let's rewind back, a year, 5 years, 10 years. Like what are the things that contributed towards this mindset, to this atmosphere that we're in now? And then gratitude. Like I think that gratitude is such a meaningful practice, because if you're taking stock on gratitude when things are good and when things are not so good, and then when things are really not so good, if you can somehow remember and check those notes, like literally check that journal on the things that feed you and nurture you, those are the things. It's like you've given yourself the roadmap to start climbing out, right? Focus on those things and you can start getting there. And absolutely, you both have a wealth of knowledge and all these tools that you literally have helped yourselves through and then are helping others through your practice. Yeah, Tammy, do you want to keep kind of going on there as far as like the mission and some of the tools that you've come to recognize are so powerful?
Well, yeah, to echo you with the gratitude, I practice gratitude every day, pretty much all day. And even when really, really bad things happen, Chris and I both have trained. This is the thing. You have to train your brain. You have to train. Just like working out, working a muscle, your brain is a muscle. You have to do the reps. And at first it's hard. And it's just like, I really have to think about being thankful all day. Yes, you do, until it becomes autopilot and you just do it. And I didn't just wake up one day being like, I choose gratitude. Like even today, my cup, today is as good as you make it. So that is true. But I learned gratitude from the opposite. I was not thankful for the situation that I was in. And the person that I was dealing with was in a really, really dark space. They were addicted to, I don't even know what. They were lying to me about everything. And I would come home. I didn't know what I was coming home to every day.
Mm.
I didn't know if I was coming home to, hey, I made you dinner, or I'm going to kill myself, or I didn't do anything today. I had no idea what I was coming into or getting screamed at. And I came home. I'm like, I need you to tell me 3 things that you're thankful for, because I wasn't sure if he was borderline suicidal or not. I'm like, 3 things that you're thankful for. And he was in such a dark place, he couldn't do it. And it made me so mad, because I'm like, how can you not be thankful? The sky is blue. We have a house. We have running water. And I would just start doing, like, spouting things off to be thankful for. And I did that every single day out of a place of frustration. And what I didn't realize at the time was I was training my brain to always look for the positive and to be thankful. And so from that, I also had boundaries, and I got out of that situation, because you can't help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves. And so many people give and martyr themselves to try. I know they have potential. I know they can do it. And if I just stick it out, sometimes that is not the option. Sometimes you need to cut your losses and send them love and have your boundaries. So I took mine and I moved forward. And that's the roundabout way of how I got onto this path of helping other people. I was a bartender at the time, and I was serving alcoholics alcohol and having to make moral decisions when somebody that I knew came in from an AA meeting asking for a shot. And I'm like, do I give it to them? Because here's the thing, they're going to get it somewhere else, and at least I'm going to make sure that they're going to get home safe. And then I was a coach before I was ever a coach, because I was a bartender, so that's just by default. But we all are searching for purpose and passion, and we, by nature, most of us want to give back and serve, and a lot of people aren't clear on what that looks like. I used to say, I want to help people. I just want to help people. But I didn't know what that meant. And so I did help people. I helped 3 roommates screw me over for rent. I helped somebody steal my old wedding and an engagement ring and pawn it off. I helped somebody beat me up, beat the shit out of me. I helped because I wasn't clear on what that meant. So after going to school, learning how to have grace, how to ask questions and not just like beat people up with what I thought the truth was for them, I took it serious of like, how can I actually help people and not hurt myself in the process or get hurt in the process? And just through evolution and the life path Chris and I met, we saw a need where it's like, hey, we have this unique skill set that a lot of people don't. You know, we bring this holistic side into it. We have the coaching. We both are clinical hypnotherapists. And then we have the law enforcement side as well. And it's just kind of evolved. And I'm just going to go on another little rundown for people to understand, like, what is law enforcement coaching? I think that was the original question.
Yes.
So our company has multiple moving parts. We have a team of about 20 law enforcement professionals that have gone through our training to become coaches. And they're there to do one-on-one sessions. If people want to reach out, they can work with them. And the thing with coaching is we saw kind of a gap. A lot of departments have peer support or they have in-house support. Most officers don't want to talk to somebody in-house, especially if they're going through, if it's career-wise, they might, depending on the culture of the department. But if they're really going through some stuff, they don't want to talk to somebody in-house. And they might not be at a place where they want to talk to a therapist or they can find a therapist, or culturally competent is a big part of it.
Yeah.
So we created that middle ground where it's like, you need somebody that understands the ABCs of the profession. You can throw out the jargon and the lingo. They know what you're talking about. They've been there, but we have coaches across the country. So if you're in Washington, you can talk to a coach literally in New York, Florida, Oklahoma, Arizona, California. I mean, we're all over, and they're going to know what you're going through enough to help you move through it. And I shared this on our own podcast. I don't have a team of knight in shining armor. Every single one of our team has been to battle. Some even have bullet holes and live to tell. So we have people that have been through this career and have figured out how to have that balance, how to either stay. We have a lot. The divorce rate is super high, and that gets talked about a lot. But what doesn't get talked about is the majority of my team, they've been married for 20 plus years, happily. So it's not the only option.
Yeah.
And then the other couple things that we do, we put on training. We're actually going to be in Washington, June 2nd and 3rd. We're going to do our wellness retreat, which you're part of. So we'll circle back to that one.
Yeah.
And then we're also putting on a full day of training June 4th at the Swinomish Casino, which is duty-driven deterioration, which gives everybody a proactive preventative maintenance plan that is actually applicable to the phases of the career. And then we follow that up with a training called Mastering the Mind, self-coaching and communication techniques. So we're giving you things that you can take back to your department and actually implement to improve communication.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for that rundown. And so let's cut back to the training, right? The different opportunities that are coming up around the corner, but also that you provide. I'm curious what one of the either segments or kind of lessons that is deeply resonating with the departments and with the personnel that you're talking about. And maybe it's surprising, when you designed it, like why this thing stuck out. Anything come to mind there for both of you?
Yeah. Yeah, duty-driven deterioration, that is basically a reflection of what I went through in my career. And so what I did was I broke it down into 4 different phases that I experienced. My thought process is, if I went through this, maybe other officers are going through it. Maybe other first responders are going through it. And we found out, yeah, they have been. Surprisingly, we had the first time we taught that class, we always invite spouses to attend for free, because the spouses are what's going to keep their significant other first responder honest in the class, right? So as I'm
Hmm.
talking about phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3, you're going to see spouses, elbow their significant other, indicating, hey, that's you. Like, I recognize those characteristics in you. And also what we're doing is, when we invite spouses to attend, we're educating the spouses so they can understand this is what your first responder loved one is going through. And the first time we taught that class, there was a lady, I noticed she was crying in class. And, you don't ever want to see anybody crying in class, but on a break, she came up to me and she goes, thank you. She said, thank you. Thank you for explaining what my husband's been going through. We've been married
Hmm.
for 30 years, 28 of those years, he's been a cop. And everything that you're talking about, I recognized in him. Now I know why he acted that way. Nobody ever told me this. Thank you. Can you imagine that? 28 years you're living with this person and you don't know why they're acting this way. And for her, it was comforting to know it's normal. It was comforting for her to know that it's not her. She's not the issue, right? Because sometimes spouses take it upon themselves. They blame themselves for their significant other first responder going through certain things. And this was a way to let the spouses know, no, none of this is your fault. None of this is your significant first responder partner's fault. This is just what happens if things go unchecked, if things go unnoticed, if we don't have that self-awareness, right? And it was funny because she came up to me, she told me this, and then she walked away, and her husband had gone to the bathroom. But I didn't know what he looked like. But all of a sudden I got this big 6 foot, mountain man in front of me, and very intimidating. He's looking down at me. He goes, you made my wife cry. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to make her cry.
I'm
He goes,
out.
well,
Yeah.
technically, I made her cry. But thank you for doing this,
Uh,
right? So it was at that moment, that was the very first class we taught. And it was at that very moment that I knew, okay, this is a solid class because it's resonating with people. And, we taught this class in San Diego, or in Southern California, and people were sharing, think about this, people were sharing personal experiences, traumatic experiences that they had at work, and they're sharing it with a group of strangers, right? Because it's a class. And I thought,
yeah.
wow, cops don't like to share, but here they are sharing what happened, right? They felt safe enough. And I guess we give them permission to share, to talk. Earlier I told you I took FMLA and I took 3 months off and I isolated myself. When I did that, my friends would call me up, coworkers, but they're my friends.
Hmm.
Hey, let's go do lunch. Let's go do lunch. Let's go meet up for lunch. And I'd always come up with an excuse not to meet up. My really close inner circle friends wouldn't take no for an answer. They're like, no,
Yeah.
let's meet up for lunch or I'm going to come over to your house, right? So my buddy, who was still a cop at the time, still an officer, we met for lunch. And he asked me, he goes, what's going on? He goes, I haven't seen you, for a couple months. What's happening? And I told him for the very first time, this is the first time I shared what I was dealing with, the PTS related stuff, the crying for no reason, the panic attacks, the separation in my marriage. I am finally opening up to another officer, a friend of mine, and he smiled at me. Can you imagine that? I'm opening up for the very first time, and he smiled at me when I told him what was happening. Now, Eric, why do you think He smiled at me.
Because he'd already seen it. He already knew, right? He's finally seeing that relief in you, and he's proud of you, right? And he's ready for you to kind of move forward.
Yeah, exactly. But also because he's going through the same thing. He goes,
Mm,
I thought I was the only one going through it. Right. So, and it was at that moment I thought, oh my God, like you're going through it too? Like you're a squared away cop. You get into all kinds of stuff. He goes, yeah. He goes, I thought I was the only one going through that. I thought I was the only one having panic attacks. I thought I was the only one that was dealing with depression and anxiety. And it was at that moment I'm like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Like other people, I'm not broken. I'm not weak. It just happens, right? But this is the problem when we isolate, is we think we're the only ones going through it. And by communicating and talking to each other and knowing, okay, other cops are going through this, it's not just me, it's very comforting. So when I teach about duty-driven deterioration, I explain what we go through in law enforcement because I had the opportunity to work different positions in the department, right? And every position has a different type of stress. Patrol stress is going to be a little different than homicide stress. You see, on patrol, the world isn't safe until you make it safe. On
hmm
patrol, you could be sent to a domestic violence, but the reality is you really don't know what you're going into until you get there. You have to assess, right? And on patrol, you wear every hat. You're going to respond to every type of call versus homicide stress. Homicide stress, you're going to be on call, right? On homicide stress, you have caseloads. You have to go and attend defense interviews, get beat down by the defense attorney during defense interviews and in trials. You have to keep your command constantly updated. You have to keep the family of the victim updated. On top of that, you're trying to solve a crime, right? It's a different type of stress. But if you don't know how to alleviate that stress, you bottle it up. And eventually what happens? It all comes crumbling down. So when it comes to duty-driven deterioration, I talk about the 4 phases that we go through. But not only do I talk about it so that it creates a self-awareness. But I'm also going to give you a strategic response plan. If you find yourself in one of these phases, here's a plan that you're going to create to get yourself out of there. I'm not going to give you that magic pill and say, take this magic pill and it'll make all your problems go away. That's not how this works. You have to take the initiative. You have to get yourself out of it. But I'm going to show you how. I'm going to give you this response plan. I'm also going to give you a strategic support network that is, we put all kinds of different resources that you can reach out to, right? Because, we're not saying do law enforcement coaching. We are the end all be all. Come to us and we'll fix all your problems. No, you might have to go talk to a psychiatrist. You might have to go talk to a counselor. You might have to reach out to your physician, if you're gaining weight because of depression or if you're losing excessive weight because of anxiety, right? You might have to
hmm
go talk to these different professionals besides law enforcement coaching. But what this is doing is it's creating a plan for you to get out. It creates a self-awareness and then it creates that plan for you to get out of it so you don't stay in there for years. Because unfortunately, for me, I operated in those phases for years and I didn't recognize it. And it almost ended my career twice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks for running through that. I think the listeners can hear all these kind of action items that you walk them through with the training, but also you hit on that key thing that I think any kind of coach or teacher will recognize, any person of value, which is that no two people are the same, right? Your friend heard a lot of that similarity in his example, him smiling when you're sharing. And I venture that is a lot of what's resonating, right? When you're teaching this and people are getting these bits and pieces, right? The first responders getting their elbow nudged so many times in the session that they're getting like a bruise that's developing and on, right? Like, so we can recognize the power of sharing story and how people can have these bits and pieces that might be like almost carbon copies and other pieces that's like, oh man, like how you've reflected and how you felt in that, it's like you see me, right? And then you give them the roadmap to assess their own life. And because the steps taken and the resources used are going to be different for every person. So I think that's extremely powerful to recognize. Tami, I want to shift to you and see what that evokes in you, and also maybe you can walk us into talking about the retreat.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much. I mean, I could talk for days on all of it. You asked originally like kind of what is impacting, what's helping, and I had like 8 different situations come
Yeah.
from one. We do academy coaching and get these, the babies at the beginning of their career working with a coach. And we realized when we started that really quick that if they're in the academy, there's a couple parts of that. We don't like to mandate coaching. We want people to want to use the service, not have to, because when you mandate, you get rebellion against it. I don't want to be mandated. However,
Sure.
the baby cops don't know what they don't know. So it does need to
Yeah,
be
you got to get them
mandated.
in.
Whether it's coaching or therapy or talking to somebody, you need to tell them you need to be talking. But it doesn't need to be an hour-long session. They're already stressed. They don't have an hour. So a 15-minute check-in with a coach just to make sure, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And the thing is, if we do that on a weekly basis that they're going through the academy, the minute that they're not doing great, they fail, they screwed up, they didn't, whatever, they can then lean into their coach. We almost had somebody be like, I don't think this career's for me, because they failed a test and they started getting in their head.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to coach them through it, reframe what was going on. And now they're through FTO and the department loves them. They are an all-star. But the department almost lost that recruit for a very trivial thing, but coaching was able to help. So that's a big one. But we help with the retirement process too, because the thing is, just because the career ends, there is so much more to unpack with the retired life. And there's not a lot of people. It's finally starting to come around into the conversation, but I'll use that as the transition into the retreat, because our retreat is open to all public safety professionals in Washington state. We only have 40 spots and some of those are already filled. And I'm going to go here. Okay, ready? I'm going off on my retreat.
Here we go.
Tangent.
Buckle up.
Okay. It is open to sworn, non-sworn, active, retired. If you are in public safety, fire, EMS, yes, we are all from the law enforcement. We stayed in our lane, but coaching is coaching. It helps. And if you feel called to it, it's all community. It's a total team effort. We have, I think, some fire coming for sure as well.
Nice.
With that said, there's a few different things. So the retreat itself is June 2nd to the 3rd. We have multiple members of our team coming, and Eric is going to be our guest instructor, so he's going to be there as well. We are charging for it. It's $12.75 per person. However, I'm going to talk on that. I have to charge because I'm running a business and I have to pay for all of the stuff that goes into running a retreat, which it is not cheap to do, and I have to pay my team and take care of them. So I do need to make some money off of this. However, we at the core, our mission, we never want money to be the reason that somebody's not getting the resources that they need. So departments, I'm going to yell at you guys for a second. If you have somebody in your department, first of all, you can send your peer support and wellness team. They would benefit from it. They're going to learn a bunch of tools that they can take back and put into your departments to strengthen and help. That's great. By all means, send them. But when you send them, also send us your saltiest dogs. I am always talking about the salty dogs, the guys that are sitting at the back of the class, like, I'm fine. This is bullshit. I don't need it. Those are my bread and butter. I love you guys. That was my dad, and I resonate. And I even put, we did a training, and I put, who is this training for? And I listed all the things, and I put salty dogs, and Chris and the team was like, are you sure you want to do that? The first people that walked through the door came in being like, you got us at Salty Dogs. That's us. I'm like, welcome.
Yeah. I love that because... Yeah, and I've reflected on this before. Like, the people that are upset about things, they're, sometimes labeled as like negative or the cynics, right? Like, that emotion means they care. And they care deeply because they're letting you know, right? With the time you got to worry about someone in an organization or a team is when they say nothing, right? They're just there, kind of, but they're kind of not there. So no, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. And so if you have somebody that and maybe they are for the departments, I'm still talking at the departments, individuals, if you want to come to this, you can pay out of pocket. I'm going to give you guys some discounts and freebies that you can grab onto. First come, first serve. Take advantage of it in a moment, but invest in yourself. Here's the thing. The other reason why a lot of people are like, well, I could have gone to this. It's free. One of the things that we've learned, when you give something away for free and people don't have any skin in the game, they haven't invested in it, they don't care, they don't value it, and they don't show up. It's just like having a gym membership. You have a gym membership that's $20 a month. You're always like, I probably should cancel that or go, but you don't. But if you hired a personal trainer and you're spending $200 a month, you're going to show up because you're putting the investment and you want the return on your investment. So if you guys sign up for this retreat, you're going to get your return on the investment because we're going all out on this. With all that said, departments, you need to invest in your people. If you have somebody that comes to you and says, hey, I would like to go to this counts as training. So put it out of your training budget, put it out of your wellness budget, go write a grant, find a sponsor, do something, take care of your people. Okay. Second, individuals, if your department won't do it, take care of yourself. And if money is really an issue, you really don't have it in your budget, you really can't do it. here's the thing. We just posted on social media across all of our channels that if you comment, like, and share that post, you will be entered to win one of all the whole thing free. Come. We're giving 5 of those away. We also are opening up 3 scholarship spots. And if you're learning about this retreat through this podcast and you do have a little bit of funding, you're going to get 50% off. The promo code is BlueGrit. And you can put that in at the lawenforcementcoaching.com/wellness event or events wellness retreat. Register and come join us because this is going to be, it's only 2 days. It's one night. I will be transparent. Yes, you do have to sleep in the barracks and you have to bring your own bedding. So it's not luxury 5-star in that regard. But this is a rustic disconnect. You're going to be among common, like-minded people, and you're going to come out of it just feeling reconnected because I'm going to go above and beyond to make sure that that happens. So
Yeah.
take that.
Yeah, mic drop. Yeah, thanks for the crash course. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an episode that's probably coming after this. You know, the power of retreat is huge, and we know like how multitasking goes. And you know, you're listening to this, you're reading that, you're dealing with your normal day-to-day life. It's not the same as this intentional break from what you're doing and immersing yourself in whatever the thing is, right? So there's power in that. And also, you know, like it's Fort Casey, so it's a historical site, Whidbey Island, you're on the water in the PNW. So, and people from the state are aware, but for those outside, it's like, yeah, just like a lot of cop training when you are on a base or an old base. And yeah, like that's the setting, which most of us recognize, especially if we've been on some sort of a team where you had to go out of town for training. So no, thanks so much for sharing that. The information will be in the show notes. And I do encourage, and I think that more and more departments are, especially in this region, we're pretty forward thinking as far as training and development. We all have a ways to go, but certainly like approving out of town training for development of people. Your people are your greatest resource and investment. And so if you listen to the show, you know that's a gimme, you know, as far as like my ideology there. But yeah, thank you so much, Tami and Chris, for coming on, for sharing these key nudges or shakeups or just encouragements or challenges for our law enforcement and first responder communities and personnel. I want to ask you each, like, if you have any kind of closing notes that you want to leave folks with, and then again, where they can find, just another nudge outside of the show notes, where they can find out more.
Tami, do you want to mention your the title for your podcast?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we are also getting into the podcast game at a little bit different approach than everybody else. So I'm going to give you guys the strategy and then I'll bury the lead. I'll give you the name. So every month we're going to have a dedicated topic, and every week we're going to have different guests come on talking about that topic. And then at the end of the month, we're actually going to have a live group coaching call. So first responders from around the country can join into the conversation. You can ask questions, you can give what's working, you can do pushback, challenge us and be like, yeah, that's great for you, but that would never work here. Let's have that conversation. These conversations, what I've been saying is they need to be had and they need to be heard. So we are opening it up and providing, and also what we put in the subtitle is we're cutting the red tape. Because we have sat there with departments being like, yes, we absolutely want your resources. And then they get told, no, there's not enough funding, or the city says no, or whatever reason. And officers and personnel are not getting the resources fast enough. So we're opening up that conversation. We have amazing guests coming on, and we're going to stand out a little bit because the reality is, as we've kind of already alluded to, those in the wellness space love the wellness space. Those that aren't and need it basically are like, when you say wellness, they're like, blah, 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 something wellness. So that's the name of our podcast. Blah, 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 something wellness, weekly roundtables by Law Enforcement Coaching. Those that need to listen should probably tune in because there's something in every episode that is useful. And I personally, we operate with 2 philosophies. So our business company operates with the HEART philosophy: honor, ethics, authenticity, respect, and trust. And we also operate with the HOPE philosophy: help one person every day. So that is the intention of the podcast. And you can find us. You can go to lawenforcementcoaching.com. You can find the podcast. It's launching the beginning of June simultaneously with our retreat. And we're here to help. So Chris, what you got?
Yeah, I just want to say, final message for those that are listening: take ownership for your own wellness. Don't expect your department to do it for you. Don't wait for your department to create a wellness unit or something, find money in the budget to send you to training. No, you have to take that initiative, step out and get what you need to get you on that right path, to get you at that balanced place. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, Eric, maybe we'll do this on another episode, but talking about departments creating a wellness hour maybe at the end of the shift to allow officers to diffuse from the day, to work out. That admin hour allows them to work out that last hour of shift. It removes them from the street, and also all the benefits of that. So my agency did that about 18, maybe even 20 years ago. And we can talk about the benefits of having a wellness hour for departments. But again, it goes to show helping yourself, keeping yourself physically fit, keeping yourself mentally fit, emotionally fit. All of this improves your officer safety. So thank you.
Yeah, critical. Absolutely. And I love yes, we could, we're not going to go down that road because we'll be here for another couple hours. But yes, like wellness time, dedicated time, working out on duty, decompressing. There's even sabbaticals coming up, and I know that some departments somewhere are doing. I want to say Oregon for sure. So it's the way of the future if we're gonna actually maintain and support our people. If we don't want to keep hiring people at this, this rapid, I guess, record volume because of record attrition. If we're gonna actually adapt, so. Thank you both so much for coming on, and excited for more conversations in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.